Louder! What's up, everybody, and welcome to Lights, Camera, Exploitation, your guide to exploitive cinema. This is the pod boss, TJ Bowser, and joining me, as always, is my doppelganger, Kangabaga from down under, Mr. Brody Kane.
Hey, you motherfucking dogs.
And the slickest of all the Nicks, Mr. Slicknick.
How are you, everybody?
Today, we have a doozy of an episode, but first, it's time for your slice of life. Brody Kane, how goes it?
It all goes well, like I say every week, in my neck of the woods. What did I get up to this week? I worked. It's actually a short week this week. Had yesterday off due to the Easter weekend, mate. So, yeah, just been smashing down some chocolate, bit of gut rot, treating myself. And I spent last night trying to find a Dr. Giggles Blu-ray. Sadly enough, I can't really find a decent one because they're released in Spain and France, I'm pretty sure. So, Vincent, if you're fucking listening, mate, just putting that out there for you.
That
Dr.
is
Giggles
one of the rumored discs, I think.
Well, I fucking hope you're correct because you certainly have my interest, Mr. Bowser. What do I do? What else did I do? Oh, I just finished rewatching The Haunting of Hill House for like the fucking sixth time. Love that TV series. Mike Flanagan is a genius. Definitely a fucking tearjerker. Gets me every goddamn time. Yeah, but other than that, not much else. Not much else going on with me. What about you, Slick Nick?
Not a ton. Like I said before the show, Slick Nick was feeling a little sick Nick again, so I have a doctor's appointment coming up. So I didn't do a ton. Mostly sat home and was lame and drank water and watched the Big Mouth spinoff on Netflix a bit.
What's that called?
Human Resources.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty funny. It's pretty goddamn funny. But yeah, I mean, not a ton. At least not after work. Work has been making me pretty damn tired. I wish I had today off like you, Brody. We didn't get anything for Easter, which I thought we did. I guess we didn't. But I was expecting to have this coming Monday off like all week until I just found out like yesterday because we got invited to a like retirement plan meeting thing. And I was like, are we even going to be here? And like, yeah, it's not in the handbook. I'm like, fuck. So I'll be back in on Monday. But yeah, really, that's about it. It's been a little bit boring for me. It's probably going to be for the rest of this month, to be honest. What about you, TJ?
Well, I was productive as hell as usual. Made some progress on the comic book. Watched a bunch of films, including the documentary about William Griffey, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, earlier this morning. Yeah. I watched The Big Racket, which is a Enzo Castellari film. Trying to watch a bunch of film and keep up with the podcasting network. We have a new podcast joining the network very soon called Close Encounters of the Fit Kind, hosted by one Brian Morehouse, so expect to hear new content from that very, very soon, exclusively on ProjectLouder.net, and of course, audio platforms everywhere. But yeah, just keeping stuff moving, and I'm excited to talk about one of my picks this week, and that pick is 1993's Trauma.
Much of what I do comes from dreams. Nicolas. From the dark side of dreams. From the dark side of human nature. Dario Argento's Trauma.
Some other soul is here with us tonight. The recent dead.
It will draw you in. Hold you down. Don't be afraid. And pull you apart.
Please.
Whose face? You saw him. Because someone is watching.
Mama!
Your friend may be in real danger.
Someone is waiting.
Were they lovers?
Lovers. Someone who knows the past cannot be forgotten.
They were decapitating. The severed heads of all 7 headhunter victims were found in the trunk of his car.
And never forgiven.
She's not here. They just came and took her away.
Aura, you're all alone now. Christopher Rydell, Dario Argento, Frederick Forrest, James Russo, and Piper Laurie. In Dario Argento's maddening thriller, Trauma.
And that is directed by Dario Argento, who also did Cat O' Nine Tails in 1971, Inferno in 1980, The Phantom of the Opera in 1998, and most recently, Black Glasses in 2022. Writers Franco Ferrini, Gianni Romali, and Dario Argento. Additional dialogue by Ruth Jessup. Cinematographer Rafael Muertes, who also did Blood Delirium in 1988, Flight of the Innocent in 1992, and The Second Wife in 1998. Music by Pino Donaggio, who also did Brian De Palma's Body Double in 1984, Raising Cain in 1992, and Seed of Chucky in 2004. Costume design, Lisa Evans, who did Silence of the Hams in 1994, Stir of Echoes in 1999, and Scooby-Doo in 2002. Ooh. Production design, Billy Jett, who worked on Puppet Master 3, Toulon's Revenge in 91, one of Brody's faves, Cougar Hunting in 2011, and Blade, the Iron Cross in 2020. Producers Dario Argento, Chris Beckman, and David Pash. Special effects by the legendary Tom Savini, who worked on Dawn of the Dead in 1978, The Burning in 1981, and Monkey Shines in 1988. Budget, $7 million USD. Starring Christopher Rydell as David Parsons, who was in On Golden Pond in 1981, Gotcha in 1985, and Flesh and Bone in 1993. Asia Argento as Aurora Petrescu, who starred in The Church in 1989, Scarlet Diva in 2000, and Land of the Dead in 2005. Piper Laurie as Adriana Petrescu, who starred in Carrie in 1976, Twin Peaks from 1989 to 1991, and The Faculty in 1998.
Love that movie.
Fucker.
Josh Hartnett's hair is my favorite.
The spiky back.
Hell yeah. It's very 1998.
It's the same hair in Halloween H2O because those films were filmed at the same time.
Good point.
The only difference is his hair's messier in The Faculty. He would just go like this walking between studios. Ira Belgrade as Ernie. That's about it. That's all that Ira Belgrade ever did. Frederick Forrest as Dr. Judd, who also was in The Conversation in 1974, Apocalypse Now in 1979, and Lonesome Dove in 1989. That's a good one. Laura Johnson as Grace Harrington, who started Beyond the Reason in 1985, Deadly Exposure in 93, and Red Eye in 2005. Dominique Sarand as Stefan Petrescu, who starred in Old Explorers in 1990, The Usual in 1992, and The Family in 2013. James Russo as Captain Travis, who was in Once Upon a Time in America in 1984, Open Range in 2003, and Django Unchained in 2012. And last, but certainly not leastly, Brad Dourif as Dr. Lloyd, who was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975, Dune in 1984, and The Exorcist 3 in 1990. Slick Nick, read it for us.
Aura is a young Romanian who, while on the run from her parents, is rescued by a journalist and recovering drug addict, David Parsons. After being returned to her home, Aura's parents are murdered by a vicious serial killer known as the Headhunter, sending Aura back on the run. To David, with no one to turn to for help, the unlikely pair launch their own investigation into the killings, discovering shocking and long-hidden revelations that connect the continuing murders ever closer to Aura and a terrifying secret from her past.
Awards! We got one! Count it, one! From the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards from 1994, and that is the Best Limited Release / Direct-to-Video Film nominee, and Best Supporting Actress, Piper Laurie, nominee. Boys, let's get physical! Okay, so this week's release we have from Vinegar Syndrome, released January 25th, 2022, not rated, 110 minutes, one movie, two cuts. It features a newly scanned and restored in 4K from its 35mm inner positive. Beheaded, an interview with writer-director Dario Argento. Heads above the rest, an interview with special effects artist Tom Savini. Female Hamlet, an interview with writer Franco Ferrini. Ruby Rain, an interview with composer Pino Donaggio. When the Lightning Strikes, an interview with cinematographer Rafael Muertes. Interview with actress Sharon Barr. Interview with actor/casting director Ira Belgrade. Interview with James Russo. Interview with Piper Laurie. And an interview with Rod Smith. Audio commentary with The Hysteria Continues. And an audio commentary with film historian and author Alexandra Heller Nicholas. On set with Tom Savini, an archival featurette with behind-the-scenes footage, and that is too sweet! Archival electronic press kit with behind-the-scenes footage and interviews with the cast and crew. Video work print featuring several extended scenes, multiple trailers, reversible cover artwork, English SDH subtitles, and it is a region-free Blu-ray. Both Brody and I have it. Boys, take a look at it.
Ooh, that is pretty. I'm assuming that's the extended version you were talking about earlier, right?
Yes, there is.
The 150 minutes.
This, I believe, is the first time that in the United States that the uncut version has been released in its entirety. There's a couple scenes, and I'll just mention it now, that 2 or 3 instances where the audio drops out, the audio quality, and I believe that was sourced from a VHS tape, but like we said, they were able to scan a special cut of the film. So
the regular runtime that I was able to find for it says like 146 minutes. The version that I watched, the one that is the IMDb TV, was 150 minutes. So I think it is the extended cut as well.
Yeah. So if you're watching on like a nicer system, you will notice the audio drop down in those 2 to 3 different scenes. Again, those are just those bonus scenes that are included in the special version of the film, which I believe is the uncut version, not rated. Available on the Vinegar Syndrome website, I believe, with the slipcover still. Both Brody and I have this. We highly recommend it if you are an Argento completionist. If you like slasher films from the 90s, this is highly recommended. And if you like the giallo genre, this is one of the last of its kind. Enjoy it. Boys?
Yeah, motherfuckers.
What'd you dig up?
I could start.
Yeah.
So, the character of Aura is actually originally based on Asia Argento's real-life half-sister, Anna, who did actually suffer from anorexia. Anna does have a small cameo in the film as well. She does appear during the closing credits of the film. She is the one dancing on the balcony with the reggae band. However, unfortunately, a few months shortly after the movie was released in 1994, Anna did pass away in a scooter accident. So she did not go on to appear in anything else past this film.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
So, in addition to the effect that the film had on her, in her 2021 autobiography, Anatomy of a Wild Heart, Asia describes various affairs she had during the production of Trauma, which included her co-star saying, "For the first time, I felt guilty about cheating on someone sexually. I fucked the lead actor, who was Christopher Rydell, an electrician, and a handsome musician I met at Prince's First Avenue nightclub."
She got the American experience while she was here. So, in an interview with HollywoodChicago.com, I found actor Piper Laurie reflects on her time working on the film. She did say, I haven't seen that since I made it. I had a lot of fun on that film when we shot it because it was so silly. I felt silly acting in my black wig, and I had some sort of funny accent. It was just pretty over the top, and I just had fun laughing in between takes. And I believe it said also the actor who played Dr. Judd was also just kind of goofing around and joking and laughing with her most of the time as well. So they did have fun while they were working on the production for it.
Good.
So in a 2010 interview with Behind the Couch, Argento describes what it's like working with studios in the US during the production of Inferno and Trauma. "I felt very comfortable working in the US because under the working point of view, people there are very professional. I was really comfortable when I shot Masters of Horror because the technicians and actors were very professional. Unfortunately, though, I had problems with the post-production because the American producers have a way of doing things completely different from the Italian and European ones. Therefore, I had various problems, especially, for example, with giallo, which has been a disastrous experience."
So, in the original script for Trauma, Adriana's death was actually intended to be much more gruesome than what appeared in the final film.
Oh.
with the wire that decapitates her originally going through her mouth, cutting her head in half rather than her neck. Tom Savini has stated that the shot was meant to be filmed from inside of her mouth as the wire went in, and that they began to work on a large mouth model set piece for the shoot that they were going to put the camera in. However, as they were doing it, Argento came up with the idea of having her head rolling over and then saying Nicholas over and over. So while they were constructing it, he just had it scrapped. And I felt so bad for Tom Savini in that. I was like, that's so much better, though. That's so cool.
Doesn't he get kind of excited about talking about making the giant mouth? I think I've watched that before. He's kind of like,
we were going to make this giant fucking mouth, dude. It was going to be so cool. And Argento was like, wait, no, I have a better idea.
We're going to do something that's kind of funny.
All of the heads talking throughout this whole thing is hilarious.
Yes.
So the majority of the notes I was able to find actually do come from that Vinegar Syndrome release. And on it is the interview with Mr. Argento himself, and he discusses about writing the story. So he goes on to say, together with Farini and Romoli, I wrote a story that took place in pretty much imaginary Italy. Later, I had the idea to shoot it in the United States. I wanted to shoot it in America, and so I found a co-producer that ventured with me. So we started to look for a place to shoot the movie. Eventually, the city of Minneapolis came up. I had visited, and it seemed appropriate for the kind of movie I wanted to make. At a dinner party, an agent, a friend of mine from New York, introduced me to Ted Klein, a famous writer and editor of the Twilight Zone magazine. When I met him, he was an editor and made a good impression on me. It was his participation that brought the movie with its vague setting to a typical America setting.
I didn't know Twilight Zone had a magazine. Oh, check that out.
I actually, they show it in the documentary. You get to see the cover of it. It's pretty cool.
Ooh, oh, hell yeah. All right. So Argento goes on to talk about the theme of the film. It says, the theme of love in this movie was important because it was quite a bizarre love, because it was between a really young girl and a man who is much older than her. So I wanted to tell the story of this meeting between her, who was suffering from anorexia, and this young man, low life, an American man. Could have just said American man, bro.
Maybe he found out what she did.
Then all the backgrounds of the story emerged, explaining who he actually was, who she actually was, and her family.
Fuck, very nice. Argento talks about the filming locations, and he states, I started to slowly elaborate it, and this complex and complicated story was born. Shot between Minneapolis and St. Paul, which is always Minneapolis because Minneapolis has a bridge that crosses the Mississippi, and on the other side is the other city, which is identical. St. Paul is older because it was the first to be built, and it's also more elegant, more beautiful with villas. So we shot in these two cities. It was a nice experience.
Let's see why. It's been a while, but I have been to Minneapolis before, and that city is beautiful. So
it's a kind of a word.
So Argento talks about using smoke for the shoot. To give a dreamlike feeling to the movie, Rafael Mertes and I decided to fill it with smoke, with a system that at the time was a trend in England. So we filled the movie, all the scenes, all the settings, even outdoors with smoke, which, of course, the film camera did not catch. You can't really see it in the end. You simply see a sort of veil, which gives the movie a dreamy setting, a dreamlike sensation. Since the smoke is a chemical smoke, suddenly I lost my sense of smell and taste. I could no longer smell or taste anything. Dario. Ease up on the smoke machine, brother.
Argento elaborates on professionally working with his daughter, and he goes on to say, in this movie, this is the scene where Asia undresses in the bathroom and is seen by the man. The scene was thought without having Asia as the main character in mind, but with a hypothetical main character actress. So at a certain point, I asked her, look, there is a scene where you should undress and show your breast. She was young and said, yes. I know that I've read it in the script and it's fine. So let's do it. What's the big deal? And so we set the camera, we sent people away, and she took her clothes off and showed her breasts to the audience.
Now get yours out. Whoa, look at those things.
So, Argento on actress Piper Laurie says, Piper Laurie was one of the other main characters, and I got along with her. She was very introverted, but she was also very kind. It was a very interesting relationship because she was always in her hotel room. She didn't go out, not even to eat. She cooked for herself, then she would come on the set, act, and then she would shut herself again away in the hotel. She was a weird person. What what hotel has a kitchen you can actually cook in?
Some of them do.
Like, I don't think I've ever been to one. I could just imagine you brought like a hot plate and just had it on the dresser next to the
Some
TV.
nicer hotels have burners and shit, like actual kitchenettes. Like the ones in Disney World, like I stayed in a presidential suite. Those have like 2 bathrooms, like a hot tub inside the room, full kitchen, like living room. Yeah, full Monty, man. So when you
That's like our Airbnb in Vegas.
Brody?
So Mr. Argento goes on to say, in the movie, they talk about the French Revolution, but the important fact was that during the French Revolution, the guillotine was invented and people were decapitated. In the movie, the characters are decapitated, so this was like a memory that the main characters had of this French Revolution. We worked on this movie together with Tom Savini, but not so much, because he was working on his own projects in Pittsburgh, where he lived, of course. He would come and bring the script, but he did not do an important job. I mean, his special effects were needed, but not so much, and not as much as needed by George Romero.
I wonder what movie he was working on. So, Argento on editing says, editing was done in Los Angeles with equipment provided to us by George Lucas, who had just brought it up. His group had just invented it, and it was mounted on some discs, some laser videos. I think I was the first one to use it because Lucas asked me to use it. The editor and I started to. Well, he had never used it. Neither had I. I didn't know how to use it. It was very complicated to use. In fact, it did not become successful. Therefore, it disappeared, and now it is no longer used. I started to edit the movie with another editor who came to Minneapolis. He worked for the first 2 weeks, but we did not fit together. We did not understand each other. He didn't understand the mood of the movie. He had an assistant, and so I took his assistant, and I made him an editor. He edited the movie later. That is amazing.
You know,
That's awesome.
traditionally, Argento is known for giving young up-and-coming talents opportunities like that. It's cool that he does that and allows for the next generation of filmmaker to kind of learn under him. It's rad. You see the work of Michel Soave and Luigi Cozzi come from that type of tutelage. Is that the right word?
Didn't he do that as well with the some of the actors for Crystal Plumage?
Yeah, that's right. When we did the notes for that, he did kind of coach them, huh?
Okay, so we have Argento on the music for the film. We enjoyed working with Pino Donaggio, as always. I have made several movies with Donaggio, and we always work well together. We made the soundtrack in Venice, where he has his studio, and it was a beautiful experience. I wanted celestial music, quite gentle, a little above the clouds. He understood what I wanted, and so he made the soundtrack exactly like this.
You know, one could think that like he watched a De Palma film, and that's where he found Donaggio, but
It could be. I think it was part of the problems he was dealing with the producers, because if I remember correctly from research, he did originally want to use that band Goblin, but the producer said no.
yeah, it's normally Goblin or Claudio from Goblin. So yeah, I don't know if he's used anybody other than he was supposed to use Daft Punk for Black Glasses, but the pandemic hit and then they broke up.
I was about to say, and then Daft Punk broke up. Argento shares his final thoughts on the film. Says, Trauma is a peculiar movie. Firstly, it was the first movie I made with my daughter, Asia. And then, because I experimented with a lot of new techniques, the editing on Laserdisc. Moreover, I had touched some human subjects, which I usually don't use in my movies, like anorexia, the relationship between mother and daughter, which I normally don't add to my movies. It was shot in a peculiar and weird city, and for this reason, it is a movie that will remain in my memory forever.
Fucking A. So moving on from Mr. Argento to Mr. Franco Ferrini, and he talks about Dario contacting him for the work on Trauma. Goes on to say, Trauma comes after Phenomena, Opera, and Two Evil Eyes. So I got a call from Dario saying, I have to make a new movie. Let's think about the new movie. I told him the position I was in. I said, look, Dario, right now I'm doing other stuff. I told him truthfully because he is a friend, an accomplice, a travel companion, and I did not want him to find out for himself later on. Hence, this whole thing offended him a little. He did feel offended because many directors consider the scriptwriter as their property. Therefore, he felt the need to get reinforcement to hire someone else. He turned to Gianna Romoli, with whom he had already worked with because he had written the movie The Sect, which Argento produced, directed by Michelle Suave. So we came together, the three of us, to write and think about trauma, starting from a small narrative cue, which is the identity of the protagonist. The protagonist is an anorexic teenage girl who I believe has to do with an autobiographical detail of Dario.
We will do The Sect in the future that has drug exploitation.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it has a rare appearance by Jamie Lee Curtis's younger sister.
Oh,
Yes.
alrighty. So Franco then elaborates on the subject matter of the story. He says, we did some research. As it also happens for phenomena, we learned a lot about insects, about sleepwalking. But then, in the movie, there's not much about it. This is a safeguard for scriptwriters. You have to write about things you know. Maybe they do not go in the movie, but in the meantime, you have to learn them. And we did that with anorexia. Anorexia is a dysfunction that happens in dysfunctional families, which means not only is the anorexic person sick, but the situation also is that she is ill too. According to a notion of psychology by Palo Alto Watzlawick, Gregory Bateson, which is called systemic.
Yes. So we also have Franco talking about the gecko, and you'd probably like this one, Mr. Bowser. We had meetings at my house and I had a garden, an outbuilding, and every now and then a gecko would appear. This gecko impressed Dario. It was big and grey. He said it brought good luck. He is very superstitious. Dario said, let's put this gecko in the film that comes to visit us.
Yes.
Yeah, he's notorious for being superstitious. That's awesome that he did this because of the gecko. But would it be a giallo movie without an animal of some sort that's completely unnecessary?
It was in one of the interviews that I read with Argento later on as well. He talked about it. And he was like, oh, like with the crystal image, and all that. And then, Trauma's got the gecko and everything. And he was like, I like putting animals in movies. It was more or less his response to it was he was like, I like animals, man. I like putting them in movies. I like using them as symbolism.
I like what Vin Zin did with the slipcover. It's like they put the gecko on the back. It looks cool, but it's not a big deal of the fucking movie.
No.
The gecko's so like dopey in the movie too, like when he's like patting it on the head whenever he's going up the stairs, and it gives him that little big smile.
And we'll talk about that later.
Yes. So, and finally, we have Franco elaborating on the murder weapon. Says, the murder weapon is Dario's whim to invent stuff. He likes to draw, to conceive murder weapons. I remember when he drew that sort of artisan garrote, the metal noose. And by the way, this was something which also made him very angry, because the same metal noose appears in The Counselor, directed by Ridley Scott, where there is the same weapon. He told me that he was pissed off at Ridley Scott, and it looked the same.
Dude, he
I
has
can see
so
him
much
calling
drama around him between Fulci hating him retroactively and then like
the stuff with like Ozzy's autobiography, and then he's got. I could just see him just calling Ridley. Ridley picks up the phone at 3 in the morning. It's Dario. Hey, dickhead. I just watched The Counselor. Ass.
Fucking A. Well, boys, let's talk about it. Okay, favorite performance of the film? Slick Nick, start us off.
The gecko. Anyway. I am probably going to actually have to go with Asia as Aura, considering that this is the first that she worked with her dad.
One question. Are you going to include the opening scene where we see her for that performance?
Are you, like on the bridge?
Yeah.
About to go over?
I'm going to fall.
Fucking semen in her fucking eye.
Well, I mean, thinking back to our pick for Resurrection.
Shots fired. Okay, you got you there, fucking peanut butter in the roof of his mouth guy.
Look, and I mean...
Okay, cunt. Okay.
So yeah, there were, I think, certain parts that were probably a bit overacted. Again, this was her first, role working with her father.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't her first acting role entirely, was it?
No, Demons 2, she rocked up as a little kid, and she's also in The Church from 89.
That's what I thought.
She has a heavy role in that as well, I believe.
So she's still sort of at least warming up more or less. But I do think that she did a good job portraying this character racked with so much trauma. Actually, it's it's got to be difficult doing this sort of acting like this with your father directing it. So you're like not only trying to show off your acting chops, you're also trying to impress your dad. But she's portraying this character who is just so like messed up inside. Overall, from everything that happened with her parents, and it only ever gets stronger as the movie goes on, considering everything that happens at her home immediately following, especially with her father and everything. She plays it very believable, I would say, especially considering that her character is a teenager. She is very young and is still dealing with all of this. The sort of over dramatic acting, I think, initially in like the suicide attempt on the bridge and everything, I think can kind of play into that sort of over dramatic nature of teenagers, especially ones who are dealing with an eating disorder like anorexia or bulimia or something like that. It doesn't exactly put you in the best of headspace. And I think that she portrays it very well and very believable over the course of the movie. It does explain why she kind of attaches herself so hard to David if she's having these problems with her family and everything. And then her family just ends up dead. And then people around her are just continuously dying afterwards. Even though she doesn't know that it more or less doesn't actually specifically have to do with her, like especially when it comes to the psych ward at that hospital, just considering that like what we find out later, it wasn't because she was there that all of that was happening. It was more or less unfortunately coincidental to a certain degree. But you can see like over the course of the film the toll that it takes on her. And I think that just a lot more of that irrational actions that she does take do start to make more sense, especially, just even considering the name of the dang movie. But yeah, so I am going to have to go with Asia as Aura. I did also enjoy the guilt-ridden, drug-addled Dr. Lloyd walking the streets trying to get David to leave him the fuck alone. That was also pretty good. I did enjoy his albeit short role, but I did enjoy it. Brody, what was yours?
Well, like you, Mr. Nick, I did go with Asia myself. At first, I was a little bit skeptical of her performance, but it did finally grow on me by the end of the film. And how she was just able to play this girl as basically damaged goods. And it was really great to see her in the end own the character by the end of the film. I mean, it was kind of a bit of a way that she was sort of thrown in the deep end with a really deep subject matter like this. But I dare say it kind of benefit for her in the end, which is good in a way. And that chemistry between her and her dad working on this film definitely helps push that and drive that forward a bit more. So what she was able to bring to the table in this film, it definitely made me enjoy watching her throughout the film. And I definitely thought that she was actually, surprisingly good in the end. Especially after seeing that bridge scene at the start. Not a strong start, but yeah, she got good. But what more can I say about her performance than you already said, Nick? I will, like you as well, I did have here an honourable mention to Mr. Dorff as the Doctor. Yeah, I mean, you only see him for at least 5 to 10 minutes throughout the entire film, but he always brings his A game. I mean, that man, just this mentally unstable and broken motherfucker in a pretty bad way. It's enjoyable to watch. It's fun. And to see what he can achieve in such short time. So, yeah. What about you, Mr. Bowser?
So I'm going to deviate from you two. I do like Asia's performance, but there's a couple instances where I think she's overacting, and that kind of takes me away from what she's trying to convey there with the traumatic type of story she's telling. I will have to go with Piper Laurie, only because she is an absolute class act in anything you watch with her. And the little on screen you do see, I think she just nails the whole crazed mom thing, especially at the end. She was Carrie's mom, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just think you look at her in that role, and then you see this, Argento clearly was she's great in that sort of type. Let's do this my style. And that's definitely what I feel from this. The scene where she comes down and breaks into the cage room. She's creepy as fuck and she's terrifying. I will have to do an honorable mention to Christopher Rydell. I wish he was in more stuff. Yeah. I do like his performance in this. I think, again, sometimes it might be a little dry, but it could just be with the take that they picked, because other scenes he's really solid. So I would have loved to see him in more stuff.
I did really like his acting in the scene where he gets into the fight with the pharmacist because he gives him that fake prescription.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to track down because he thinks he sees her bracelet and everything. All the people are going past him thinking he's a bum and all that.
Yeah, Piper Laurie is just a fucking class act. I love her in Twin Peaks and everything else she's done. But yeah, fucking yay. So, boys, set piece. Nick, Brody?
I was gonna say I was gonna let Brody go first on this one because I did performance first. I'm gonna go with the good old psych ward / hospital where Asya is locked up, and whenever headhunter comes in, just all of the orderlies are all dead, there's blood everywhere, the lights are blaring, so the alarms are going off, you got all patients wandering the halls and everything, chasing down David and Aura as they're trying to get out. It's just all of the panic for it, and it goes from being so sterile and clinical at the opening of that and the establishing to just chaotic and dark and frightening very well, I think. I just think it was done very well. I do like when hospitals and psych wards and things like that are done properly, like in for example, previous episodes, Scanner Cop or
Bad Dreams.
Yes, I almost said Dream Warriors.
Fuck you.
I went Dream Warrior. That's not it. But yeah, I just like when those are done well, when they're able to change a set piece like that almost as if it is its own character. However, I will give an honorable shout out to the basement cage that they both end up locked in at the end. That is cool. That is weird. It is creepy. It is freaky. And I loved it. Mm-hmm.
So, Brody, do you have anything different?
I do, actually. I do.
Okay.
I do agree with Nick on what he said. That was potentially my honourable mention. So I'm going with the family homestead or mansion, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Hell yeah.
And look, I was hoping that we would see more of that in the film. And we have the final act play out there, but unfortunately that's not the case. So for the time that we got there, when we are there, it is amazing to see these pretty amazing interior shots of inside that big fucker. It's very gothic, dark, and atmospheric. Only
Psycho
I would
vibes.
dream to have a house like that. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Even the scene that takes place there is very Argento with
them walking up the
lighting.
steps at the beginning.
Absolutely.
Psycho.
Yep. But with the lighting at night and framing of these actors that play out, it's definitely giallo-esque, which I thought was a cool little take on that. But yeah, that whole house, I loved it. Even seeing Asya's room, just how big and open it was, I don't know. I'm a sucker for old homesteads. I love that gothic aesthetic about it. You're going to win me over 9 times out of 10 if you got one of them motherfuckers in your film. So yeah, I thought I'd go a little bit different and choose the homestead. What about you, Mr. Bowser?
So clearly this film is very different than other Argento films that we have watched on this show. This film, the sets are not as grandiose as his other ones. They're not as elaborate. Again, this is his first American film, so he's kind of doing things a little differently. So I'm going to deviate even further from you guys and say his house next to the lake is actually really cool. And the way that they use heavy shadow play in all the scenes with that is just fantastic. And I love how you can see the water by it and everything. I just think that's just so honorable mention to the very psycho house looking homestead, like Brody said, because it is so cool. And I love the fact that we see all the way from the top, all the way to the basement of that house. I love when we really are allowed to feel out of space in a movie, and this film definitely allows you. Favorite scene or shot? This film is filled with really cool shots and really fun scenes. So does anybody want to start us off?
Yeah, I can start us off if you like. Because, the one that stands out to me the most, if I was to ever, later down the track, forget about this film, it'll always stay with me, and that is the twist reveal.
Yes.
Of how Christopher Rydell's David walks through that room of silk sheets to only find something grotesque at the end. And it felt like a dream for how long it actually went on for. It felt like the room was endless, like a dreamlike phase. And that created the fear, suspense, and tension to a fucking fantastic payoff.
Yeah.
It was so good. And I was actually like, well, this shit just got real by the end of it. I could sort of tell that the twist was there, but I was just sort of anticipating when it was going to come. And that's all due to the beat of the scene. And I think Mr. Argento plays that extremely well, especially for a fucking day shot. Like, it's actually pretty fucking intimidating and scary. And yeah, so that scene for me was probably my favorite throughout the whole entire film. What about you guys? Which Slick Nick, TJ?
I think the final reveal of the killer with like the wide shot, then they show the other one zoomed in with the heads. I think like of all like the Argento killer reveals or twists, whatever you want to call them, which is a common theme in his films, I think this one's one of the like more standout ones, only because he likes to play with perspective sometimes, like he did with Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and this is definitely one of those instances. I watched this film with my fiance Sarah, and watching her reaction to that twist, it was just really cool. She's also a fan of Bird with the Crystal Plumage, so she was like, "Oh God, he got me again with this type of stuff." Her reaction was just, it was pure, and it definitely works. Like Brody said, what Argento tries to achieve with these shots, and some of them are a lot more creative, he accomplishes. And maybe the film and some of its elements don't work perfectly. Fuck, does it look cool?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'd be hard-pressed to pick a favorite shot for this, because just there were so many that I like. At least for scene, I'm probably going to actually have to go with the flashback, the reveal of why Adriana is doing what she is doing. It's just, it's super dark, both visually and thematically.
Yes.
Like, it hits really hard. I think it has probably some of the most like punch factor, just that like the shock of, oh shit, I can kind of see why she's as messed up as she is now. Like, the whole extended thing. So not just the death of Nicholas, that whole thing, but the like transition from that into the electrotherapy and all of that, quite a bit, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or like that kind of thing as well. It just, I think it has some of the most impact out of the entire movie, I think. Now granted, it's supposed to, considering it's the flashback, like here's why they all deserve to die and everything like that. But I think it was done fairly well. I think it was at the very least believable, considering they're doing this surgery and this massive thunderstorm going on, and it knocks out the power, and you got the light shattering, and the doctor's hand slits, you get the blood. You don't even need to see exactly what happened, you just need to know to get the full effect. And you just have them all scrambling, trying to figure out what the fuck do we do. Everything is still dark, the lightning is still crashing, Adrian is screaming. It's very chaotic, and I think it was extremely well put together, and it was the one that stood out to me the most, I think, by the end of this.
Yeah, I think we'd have to say, actually, what do you guys think about some of the more comedic scenes in this? Like the kid seeing the head in the window? Like, did anybody else get a hearty chuckle out of that? Like,
yeah,
I did actually.
So
everything with the kid.
Yeah.
Everything with the kid. The kid. The kid being an absolute idiot going, what is this? I'm going to put this piano wire thing around my neck.
But
What's
that's
this button
such a
do?
kid
Click.
thing. Like, but that's like such a kid thing. It's like, kid put a fucking murder device around his neck and was playing with the trigger. Like, this shit happens.
Kid found a guillotine and went, I wonder what happens if I put my head under it.
Exactly.
It did that, but I was partly like, you idiot, stop. And also,
but I think just remember to lock up your murder weapons if you have kids by. Like, plain and simple. And I will have to say something about that scene. Argento uses that same, like, plot point in other films. And I'm just going to reference this here. In Phenomena, when Jennifer's jumping up to grab the plans in the house, she knocks over the shelf and then falls. The kid is reaching for something, falls off the chair, and it reveals something. Same as Jennifer. In Sleepless, a hooker's leaving a house, knocks over a box, and it reveals murder weapons. So he uses this plot point of somebody tripping over something or making something fall to reveal a killer's instruments or an important piece of information a lot. And I just thought that was interesting that scene is echoed in a lot of his work.
No, that is a fair point. I do like that he does keep those sort of little nods.
Yeah.
Those
And
little
the same
stylistic
with
choices.
the butterfly shots is very similar to the field chase scene with the fly, where Jennifer follows the fly through the field to get to the house in Phenomena.
He's very idiosyncratic. He has things that he does that only does.
Well, he uses the formula, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So he has this really set giallo formula. I mean, he is the fucking daddy of Jolly. So like,
he's Mr. Giallo.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it type attitude works well for this. You can just take that story and you just adjust it every so slightly to make it a little bit more interesting each time, or do what he did with Suspiria and just make a hard right turn.
Mm-hmm. It's the good version of when you give J.J. Abrams access to lens flare.
Yes, or cocaine.
Or, good God, lens flare and cocaine.
Boys, favorite effect or death? Nick?
Oh, 100% Dr. Lloyd. Him getting decapitated by that the elevator door coming down. Never before has someone's head gone, "Ah!" Which just, I really liked it. I liked the little touch. It was one of those little bits that made me laugh. Anything that has to do with the head talking or screaming or anything after it.
Nick loves some head, Brody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to go with the mother's death. Not because it was awesome to see her head roll around on the floor, but the nosy little kid. I mean, that little motherfucker is definitely a future serial killer. And tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean,
He
the
did
way
smile when he was like,
composed-
I cut her head off.
yeah, he was composed hiding throughout the house the whole fucking entire
Granted,
time.
he looks
So
traumatized at the end.
That is true. Maybe that's a passing of the torch for a sequel.
Yeah, that's the name of the movie, like Nick said.
Yeah.
But to reach down and put that fucking device around her neck, that little fucker had balls of steel. Yeah, I love how his character becomes across as the monkey in Phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Like how can I put it? So it's like why is he there? When are we going to see his character come full circle? And surprisingly, we do at the end.
And he saves the day.
And it's a show stealer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a show stealer. I loved it. He saves the day at the end of the day, and yeah, it was cool how he was able to sort of throw that in there. I like how Argento works that in his storytelling. So it was a neat little thing that he threw in there. I like it a lot. What about you, Mr. Bowser?
Who was that second person?
Second person.
The lesbian nurse, well, doctor.
Linda? Wait. Oh, do you mean the one who gets killed shortly before David gets to her like hotel room or whatever it is, and her head is the one who's like Dr. Lloyd.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a cool scene. Oh, yeah.
I can't remember her name. I can only remember her girlfriend Linda's name.
Well, for me, I'd have to say the one where the head falls off and says Dr. Lloyd, Dr. Lloyd. I love the way it looks on screen. I think it looks rad as fuck.
Yep.
There's a movie called Dead Dudes in the House. There's a scene that's similar to that. And I think that scene's fucking hilarious. And I think Argento doing it in this film is also just fucking hilarious. Like Nick said, just the talking head gimmick kind of breaks up the horrific things going on around it. And of course, it's no way possible, but like, hey, my last dying breath's gonna be telling you the clue to the next part of the story. And it's, yeah. Yeah, it's fucking rad. I also have to say a special nod to the Asian girlfriend's death.
Linda.
Yeah, when she peeks underneath the bed. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a coolly edited shot and everything. Yeah, I like that stuff.
Oh my God, the shot of the mirror of her going to the mirror, writing that down, and then in the mirror, her walking out of the room, the hand swiping it, and then her coming back in without ever seeing the person in the mirror. That was so good. If I had to pick a favorite shot, it'd be
lots
that.
of reflective stuff in this movie.
Love mirror shots.
Wait till we do Card Player. He does one in like a glass filled with water, and you can.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. All right. I'm liking that idea.
That might be a season 6 pick. So just wait. Stay tuned, boys. Thoughts on story. So I'm going to kind of start this off as the guy who's watched the most, Argento. So this is totally mid-tier Argento for me. It's has some really memorable elements and some not so memorable elements. The acting is kind of not on par with some of the other stuff. It's definitely story-wise not as creative or as effective as his other work. But like Nick said, it touches on some serious stuff that his other stuff doesn't touch on. And I like that it's more grounded, and you can tell that it's more driven to an American audience because it kind of lays out the mystery elements a little bit more. I like in the fact of the story where they kind of hint at who the killer is, with all the point of view shots, if you notice ever so slightly, that it's always looking at like eye level to like light switches. So like the person's not tall, and you can like tell from like early on like that their eye level's like an eye like at a light switch. So it's not big. You can tell whenever the girl calls her and says she's coming up to see you now, and it's not actually a guy. So there's a hint. And then of course the very plainly written out note that says she's with her mother. And if you just read into those clues, which I don't think is as prevalent in other Argento work, which I think he just kind of did for the American audience here to just kind of like tell the story a little bit easier easier. So when the reveal hits, I don't think it made the reveal any less effective because it kind of strengthens it that he went through and added all those hints in there. I absolutely love the twist in this movie. Definitely one of the cooler standout-ish twists of his films. Yeah. For a 90s, like an early 90s slasher giallo film, super cool. He's done better, but definitely worth a rewatch.
Yeah. And I'd say I'll have to agree with you on multiple points. I do think that, the sort of localizing his form to an American audience, I believe, did kind of take a little bit out of it. I don't think this is his strongest work. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's bad. I do appreciate that he did try to go with a more human approach, like he said, dealing with things like anorexia, trauma, and the psychology.
Is this the first film he worked on Farini with? Because he would become a frequent collaborator of his after.
Let me see.
Because he just did Black Glasses with him as well.
Where's that? Nope. No, it was Phenomena.
Okay, so Phenomena was his first work.
According to IMDb.
Oh, that's right. It says it in the notes. Remember, he says it when Brody was talking about it earlier. He says we started. It was different from Phenomena. Remember?
And then
Did he do Stendhal syndrome with him? Because he had to film Ossia getting multiple times for
that. They worked together on Stendhal syndrome, Card Player, Sleepless, Two Evil Eyes, The Church, Demons 2, Trauma, Opera, Black Glasses, Phenomena.
Frequent collaborator then.
Do You Like Hitchcock, A Dark Fairy Tale, and Of Flies and Maggots.
Yep, that is his boy. Okay. You were talking about your story, sorry.
No, you're fine. So I do appreciate that he did kind of try to go for a more human approach to it. Here's how people react to those trauma. Here's how families deal with it. I do like that he did try to go for that. I do think some of the giallo conventions that he normally uses were weakened a bit by trying to play it out for an American audience like that. It's not enough to completely take you out of it. I can see why it's one of his lower ranked films, though, like lower rated ones. I think this is usually about like a 6 out of 10 around there is where I see most like ratings reviews. But I do not think it's bad. I don't think it loses a lot in the sort of localization. I think a lot of him going for new ideas kind of helped make up for it a bit. If the acting had been just a bit better, if there had been just a little bit less of the comedic heads talking kind of thing like that. If it played itself a bit more seriously, I probably would have liked it a bit more. It just kind of seemed to clash or contrast against each other with how serious it mostly plays, and then there's those little bits. I don't know. I know that we've said positive things about that before. I don't know how well it works for me, in my opinion, in an Argento film. However, it is still good, and I am glad that I watched it, and I think that everyone listening to this should also give it a watch. Brody, what did you think?
Well. I like it. Out of all the Argento films that I've seen so far, this one is probably his most romantic, like he said in the notes, mainly due obviously to the two lovers that really love each other. And that's what he does well in this film. They really show that passionate love for each other as this shit progresses. I don't think I've seen that yet in his films, not that I'm aware of anyway, but so it was definitely interesting to see that unfold. I don't know. It's an interesting premise. With some of the story, yes, some of the story does jump around quite a bit from different characters and that, but by the end of the film, it cleans itself up and I can appreciate it for what he was trying to achieve with it. And it's like you said, Nick, it was something a little bit different. He was trying new ideas at the time, especially for an American audience. I like it for what it is. Like you guys said, it's not his best, it's not his worst, but I'd definitely rewatch it again, absolutely. The one thing that I actually do like about it, how he was able to throw in there like the death scenes during the day, Normally, a lot of his stuff is at night, and I think what he was able to achieve with that was actually quite exquisite and splendid to fucking watch. So, yes, I like the story.
Fucking A. So, it didn't do that well, did it, over here in the States, huh?
Mm-mm. This, I believe, was the last movie he made in the U.S. He did an anthology production before this, I believe, and then he did Trauma, and then he never made another movie in the United States.
And that's really sad. And I think that just the American audience struggles to understand his style of storytelling, even whenever he attempts to kind of adapt it for them. I don't know. I mean, it's either you like it or you don't with his stuff. And it's sad that his stuff didn't get a wider release, or especially later stuff, because I think that his later stuff isn't necessarily bad in any way. It's just different. And if you like giallo, it's still on par with the traditions of old. And he kind of stuck with what he knew best. And that kind of hurt him at the end, because it kind of got old with films like giallo and stuff. And he kind of, I wouldn't say that film has the flair that the other ones do. But this film definitely still, what I'd say, like I said earlier, mid-tier Argento. In takeaways, I wish Sleepless and Card Player got releases here, because I think that those films are rad, and I can't wait to talk about those films with you guys. But like Trauma, I definitely think deserves a second watch, and it deserves... What film would you introduce people to if you're gonna want to try to pitch Argento? It's not this one.
Suspiria.
You think Suspiria?
In my opinion. I'm biased. That was the first Argento movie I saw, because I've talked to you guys about this before. My uncle, big fan, he has said that Suspiria, the original, is one of the scariest movie he's ever seen. That was what introduced me into it. And then I got into giallo over time, just kind of after that. I think you get him in with the paranormal thriller, and then you hook him with the murder mysteries.
Yeah, true that. He plays what he does both genres well. Brody?
No, I was gonna actually say Phenomena, but it all depends on what you want to watch from. Like Nick said, supernatural element, fucking murder mystery, giallo. It all depends. I don't know. Look, the impact and takeaway. I don't know. You finished, Mr. Bowser?
Yeah.
See, the impact and takeaway I had from this is I kept thinking about this film after I watched it. It's not that it disturbed me. It's just that I just kept it just felt like there was a mixture of directors that were behind it. Like it felt like it was heavily borrowed from De Palma in certain parts of the story. Potentially cinematography. It looked very De Palma-ish, or if you want to say.
Do you think that that's because they're both students of Hitchcock?
I honestly believe that. Yes,
Okay.
Hitchcock had a big inspiration on both their lives. I do.
Other than Richard Franklin, can you really name anybody that isn't like Hitchcockian like those two?
Not really. No. That man inspired a lot of filmmakers. Yeah, that's a tough one. But this even felt like Lynch with its characters. Like it felt Lynchian. Is that because some of them were like really over the top and like really colorful?
Yes,
absolutely.
I totally picked up on that as well. This was definitely, but Argento has those types of characters. Like even with like Bird with the Crystal Plumage, we have that cat eating artist. Like
absolutely.
Oh yeah,
we gotta have these fun characters to break up some of the more gross and like some of the more grotesque stuff that he touches on.
Absolutely, and it feels like obviously these characters make their presence well known and staunch in front of the camera, but it's like they're caught in this haunted dreamscape.
Yes,
but I just couldn't take my fucking eyes off the screen, and it was something fresh. I wish Argento had done a lot more filmmaking over in the States, like you guys were saying. Who knows? Potentially an Argento film down under. That'd be something.
Oh.
Imagine that. Argento this would be funny. Argento characters dealing with mental health of alcohol withdrawals. And then killing people with a sharpened boomerang like that little motherfucker from Mad Max.
Well, that's Brody's weekly pitch.
Yeah, there we go. But look, at the end of the day, anyway, I'm glad we got to see this film.
Yeah.
Because it's it is underappreciated till fucking T. Thank you. And thank you to Vin Sin for saving it for us, because it's definitely a film that I probably would have never, ever fucking
they had
gone out of my way to suss.
No Region A release prior to that.
Really?
Yeah, that was the first Region A release. I think the only other one was a Spanish release.
Oh, shit.
So they really resurrected it. So thank you, Vincent.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I definitely pressured Brody into buying Trauma.
You pressuring someone to buy a movie? No, that's not possible.
You did for a start, and I was coming back from Perth, and I'm like, I've got money to spend. I might just fucking buy it just to shut him up.
Was that 2 or 3 episodes ago? You mentioned actually buying it on the show and getting it in. So like, if you just follow along. A couple
episodes back.
We got continuity.
Released, January?
Yeah.
End of January?
Yeah. It's pretty fresh. It's okay. I got Resurrection, so it's even.
Fuck it. There is nothing wrong with that fucking movie.
Oh, wait,
you
no,
cunts are just making it to be fucking worse than what it is. Yeah.
It's like Sister.
That's actually a good movie.
It was a good movie.
I think Resurrection might be better than Sister.
But I kind of like bought that and was like, Brody, you should watch it. It has gothic stuff. And he's like, oh, you said gothic. I should buy it.
Ping.
Yeah.
Well, that Eric Stoltz. But Nick, anything you want to elaborate on before we get to the rating?
Really? I do appreciate, I think that this movie probably did help bring Argento to a wider American audience.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, obviously, if he's coming over to make it, even though it didn't do particularly well, it was not as positively received as some of his other stuff. I do think that it helped get more American audiences interested in giallo, in Italian film in general. And I think like they wouldn't have made that remake, that 2018 remake of like Suspiria and things like that, like to try to test the waters again to see how Americans respond to his kind of filmmaking. I think that it would have been harder to pitch those ideas and get that kind of stuff made if it wasn't for trauma being made here and being localized for here. But really, that's about it. I think you guys mostly my other thoughts on it. So
fair enough. So this week's rating is totally fucked in the head mothers on a headhunting spree. Out of 5, Brody, start us off, you handsome son of a gun.
I'll go 3.1.
Okay, Nick?
2.9.
I'm going to give it a 3, and that is an LCE score of 3 out of 5. Totally fucked in the head mothers on a headhunting spree.
That's fair.
Yeah. So next episode is going to be a little special one. We are going to have one of our big bad Beetle buddies on, Ryan. He's going to join us for the Talk About It section of the podcast next week. Nick, what film are we doing?
We are going to watch one of the newer Elijah Wood movies, and Michael Smiley as well. Come to Daddy.
Excellent. Now, I have zero information on this film, no point of reference, so I'm going into this completely clean. And I like the fact that you pick those different movies, because where I focus mainly on 70s films, you are very well versed in modern stuff, so you're able to kind of show me the ropes with this kind of film. I mean, you got me to really like my first A24 film with Green Room, so let's see how it goes.
Fair enough. I'm hoping this one. I really like that Elijah Wood's gone from being Frodo to kind of pulling a Daniel Radcliffe, except instead of doing entirely just weird little indie movies, he went, I want to do fucking horror movies.
Now,
like the Maniac remake and all that.
Did Elijah Wood do Mandy? Was that when we were talking about that the other day, Brody?
Mandy, I believe, was Nick Cage
last night.
Oh,
no, he produced it.
He produced it. That's right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
No,
Come to Daddy is a fun little film. I dare say you will enjoy it.
Okay.
I don't know. From what I
think you will.
remember.
I think you will. I think at the very least, you will definitely enjoy Michael Smiley once more. So, was this going to be the first time he's been in one of our picks since?
Yes, since Kill List.
Kill List, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you watched A Field in England on your own. That was it. yeah.
I got it in my box set back there.
Yeah.
Which we'll touch on in later seasons. And we'll kind of touch on that right now, actually. So we do plan on taking another break after the season. We have one more episode after this. And we will be doing some special bonus episodes for you guys, which are kind of more director and actor overviews of their career, kind of touching on specific films that they've done. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. Brody and I have been bouncing around the idea of maybe having like a secondary show running in the stream where we kind of talk about things on a philosophical and a technical level. So if you guys are interested in that, let us know. Thank you for patronizing the podcast. Thank you for tuning in and getting us in those charts. I really appreciate it, and it kind of makes all this effort and time that we spend on this podcast absolutely worth it. So thank you for joining us on another episode of what I hope to be your favorite podcast. This is the pod boss, TJ Bowser, signing off.
This is your DKB saying, I'll catch you mother lickers next week.
Slick Nick signing out. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you all so very, very much.
Hit the music! Just want to let you guys know out there, listeners, Brody did attempt to reach out to Dario Argento for the second time for this episode, and we're still waiting for a response.
Ozzy, if you're listening, please.
Very fucking rude on your behalf, Ozzy. Very fucking rude.
Hey everyone, this is your podcasting god king, TJ Bowser here. I just wanted to take a break from my busy schedule of pod whacking to inform you of something I'm very passionate about and I think you should be aware of. Congenital hemorrhoidal ass disease, or CHAD for short, is a rare disease that affects 1 in 37,000 cellar-dwelling men. CHAD causes a multitude of issues including, but not limited to, hair loss, distended abdomen, low testosterone, penile atrophy, lack of logic, and bad taste in film. If you're experiencing any or all of these symptoms, please consult your local PCP immediately. CHAD is an angry, rough little disease and it must be stopped before it takes the best of us out. Now that you know about CHAD, you can help us raise awareness. First, tell a friend about this terrible disease and help spread the word. Also visit www.pleasestopchad.com to find out more and how to donate to this cause and stop CHAD's reign of terror on us all.